It is the Nike Kobe 6 and Nike Kobe 5. Obviously, when you're looking at these numbers, it's not entirely these colorways. But if you guys don't know, the most popular colorways of the two most popular shoes are both Caitlin Clark colorways. That's kind of crazy. And again, I think as much as anything, is because I think Nike actually did a pretty good job with the shoes. I think when it comes to a lot of these players, they would in fact, that they're just looking for the best shoes. I don't think as much that they're like...
Recent developments surrounding Caitlin Clark's signature footwear have generated significant excitement among basketball enthusiasts. With the season approaching and just 2 months remaining until she returns to competitive play, the anticipation continues building. Conference games are underway, adding to the buzz around women's basketball. Among the most remarkable developments is the popularity of specific sneakers worn throughout the NBA. Current data reveals that the Nike Kobe 6 and Nike Kobe 5 dominate as the league's most frequently worn shoes. While various color schemes exist within these models, the standout detail involves the leading variations being Caitlin Clark-themed designs.
That they would, in fact, that they're just looking for the best shoes. I don't think as much that they're, like, if these were if, let's just say hypothetically, if Enrique had a Kobe sponsorship, they would probably consider doing something like that. But I do have to say that it is just an objectively good thing. And the fact is, the number 3 is literally the Nike Sabrina 3s. They are the Sabrinas. In fairness, they are the spiritual successor to the Kobes. I don't think any...
This phenomenon demonstrates something truly extraordinary about her cultural impact. The success of these particular shoes likely stems from Nike's execution of quality designs. Professional athletes prioritize performance above all else when selecting their footwear. While sponsorship considerations play a role, many players gravitate toward whatever delivers the best on-court experience. The appeal of these Clark-inspired colorways transcends mere marketing. Taking third place in league-wide footwear rankings are the Nike Sabrina 3 seconds.
I don't think anyone is really arguing that one, that the Sabrinas are absolutely spiritual successors to the Kobes. Like, they're probably what the Kobes would look like if they're out now. The reality is like, they were still making Kobe shoes after up until Kobe passed away. So the odds that one of those Kobe shoes is now a Sabrina is not low. It's not low, I'll say that much. And I do also want to apologize about the lisp.
These shoes represent what many consider the natural evolution of the Kobe line. The Sabrinas essentially embody what contemporary Kobe sneakers might look like had the original line continued under different circumstances. Given that Kobe's shoes were still in production until his passing, the connection between those designs and current Sabrina models seems quite plausible. The broader implications for women's basketball cannot be overstated. Clark's rising prominence as a basketball figure has accomplished something unprecedented in terms of mainstream recognition. Her visibility has brought unprecedented legitimacy to women's basketball on a global scale.
Hello, I'll say that much. And I do also want to apologize about the lisp. Sores on both sides of my tongue. Can't do anything about it for a few days, and hopefully, I think it's just been caused by a lack of sleep and a lack just being all over the place the last couple of days. It should get better in the next few days. But that being said, it's one of those things. It's objectively a good thing for the WNBA in general. We can be real here. For the WNBA in general, it is completely a good thing.
While dedicated fans have long championed the sport, Clark's emergence has accelerated public awareness dramatically. Some resistance to this narrative persists, with certain factions attempting to downplay her influence. However, the reality remains undeniable. Clark's impact has elevated everything surrounding the league. Whether someone roots for rival teams, supports different players, or even harbors criticism toward Clark personally, the fact remains that her presence has amplified everyone's platform. More people worldwide now follow the league, understand its players, and engage with its content. Commentary has emerged, suggesting that other stars have benefited immensely from Clark's spotlight.
Completely a good thing. No matter what some people try to tell you, the rise of Caitlin Clark's relevancy in terms of as a basketball player in the world of basketball, it has absolutely more so than anyone before it, legitimized on a public level women's basketball. And you absolutely can be there like we've been telling you for years. But again, if anyone knows me, you're preaching to fucking choir with.
Aja Wilson, currently recognized by many as the greatest player in the game, exemplifies this ripple effect. While Wilson earned consecutive MVP awards previously, the widespread acknowledgement of her as the sport's pinnacle performer has intensified during this period. Debates that once centered on other legends have shifted, with Wilson now firmly positioned in discussions typically reserved for all-time greats. This elevated status, while certainly deserved through her exceptional play, has undoubtedly been amplified by the increased attention on women's basketball overall. Looking ahead to the sneaker launch, expectations run high for strong commercial performance. Speculation suggests these shoes might carry echoes of previous landmark releases, particularly the Kyrie Irving line's approach to brand partnerships.
With that. But at the end of the day, that is something that can always be argued. And it's something that people will always argue. And that's fine. And it's absolutely fine. That being said, you were now at the stage where people are still fighting against it. They're trying to zag. They're trying to fight against that. They're trying to fight against progress. Because let's be real.
The Kyrie series became legendary for its creative collaborations, featuring partnerships with cereals, cartoon characters, and various cultural brands. Those releases set a standard for sneaker collaborations that hasn't been matched since, with multiple models featuring unique themed designs that became instant collector's items. While the Kobe models will almost certainly maintain their top position in NBA footwear rankings, the potential for Clark's signature shoe to climb toward the third or fourth spot would be remarkable. The prospect of the top 4 most worn sneakers potentially including multiple designs connected to women's basketball stars and collaborations would mark an historic shift in basketball culture. New Kobe variations may emerge that alter these rankings, but the current landscape already tells a compelling story about women's basketball's growing influence on the sport's broader culture.
Let's be real. If you are a fan of another team, if you're a fan of another player, if you hate Caitlin Clark with a passion, because of what Caitlin Clark has done to this league, everything you say has more meaning. People in life know more about the WNBA. I think I saw Robin Lundberg say it, and I don't agree with it, but he's not far off when he said nobody has gained more in terms of their hype than Aja Wilson.
Discussions surrounding the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement have brought attention to a significant issue that mainstream sports journalism has largely ignored. The matter centers on Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier, 2 vice presidents serving on the WNBA Players Association Executive Board, who simultaneously operate as co-founders of the Unrivaled Basketball League. The timing of Collier's recent ankle procedure in January has raised eyebrows, particularly given her dual responsibilities. The scheduling appears questionable, considering Unrivaled struggles to attract marquee talent. The upstart league has faced challenges, generating enthusiasm and securing high-profile participants.
Far off when he said nobody has gained more in terms of their hype than Aja Wilson because of Caitlin Clark. Because let's be real, Caitlin Clark is Aja Wilson is being objectively known as the GOAT right now. And nobody was calling Aja Wilson the GOAT before this Caitlin Clark hype. And I know she won 2 straight MVPs. But Stewie versus
these same executives hold positions of authority on the very board that greenlit potential work stoppage action against team ownership. The same leadership approved demands that analysts estimate could cost the league approximately $700 million. Additionally, they rejected compensation packages offering roughly 9-fold increases over current earnings. The absence of critical coverage from prominent sports outlets has been striking. Major networks and publications known for their player-friendly reporting have remained conspicuously silent on this matter.
I don't get it. This is in January. You got hurt. Makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. That, in my opinion, that shows a little bit of lack of interest in your own business, I guess. especially in light of the fact that Unrivaled doesn't have any players. They've got nobody of note playing in that league. Let's just be real. At all. In fact, we talked about the lack of fire around Unrivaled. Well,
Their coverage often reads less like journalism and more like promotional material distributed directly from player representatives. However, Yahoo Sports recently broke ranks with this trend. Reporters Cassandra Negley and Caroline Fenton, hosts of the Hoops 360 podcast, directly addressed the ethical complications surrounding Stewart and Collier's overlapping roles. Their willingness to tackle this subject stands in sharp contrast to the reluctance shown by other media professionals. The Yahoo Sports segment acknowledged the obvious reality: 3 out of 7 executive committee members with strike authorization powers have financial ties to Unrivaled.
Fire around Unrivaled. Well, the co-founders of Unrivaled, Stewart and Collier, are, of course, VPs on the committee. The very committee that voted to authorize a strike against WNBA and NBA owners over the CBA. The very committee that authorized the proposal that would lose the WNBA $700 million. The very committee that is.
While Kelsey Plum also participates in the rival league, Stewart and Collier's ownership stake creates particularly thorny questions. The reporters noted that conflicting loyalties are inherent when individuals maintain multiple business ventures with diverging objectives. Stewart and Collier profit directly from Unrivaled's operations. Multiple athletes who participated in the league's inaugural season hold equity positions, creating financial incentives separate from WNBA interests. Historical context was provided regarding players competing overseas throughout the WNBA's existence, which also presents scheduling conflicts requiring difficult choices.
The very committee that is turning down salary increases of about 9 times the amount of money you're making right now. These are the folks you've got in charge. And I've also been very vocal about the fact that, where's the media? Where are you? Annie Costable, Front Office Sports, all the morons over at ESPN. Where are you? Why so quiet? Question mark.
However, the journalists emphasized that dismissing these complications as non-existent would be absurd. The conflicts are undeniable. Human nature makes complete objectivity impossible. Personal stakes inevitably influence decision-making, regardless of intentions to remain impartial. The question becomes whether these biases can be adequately managed and compartmentalized during crucial negotiations.
Question mark. Your articles are so pro-player, they make me want to vomit. In fact, some of them look like propaganda straight from the WNBA players. We don't get down here. Level playing field. So, excuse me, if I'd have been driving, I might have ran off the road when I saw this. We've actually got a member of
The journalists expressed ongoing concern about how private interests might influence these discussions. They acknowledged, hoping that Stewart and Collier recognize these dynamics and can separate their various responsibilities, similar to how athletes manage competing priorities. Nevertheless, these considerations remain integral to the bargaining process and cannot be dismissed. This rare moment of media accountability deserves recognition. The courage required to publicly acknowledge these obvious conflicts should not be understated, particularly when peers have maintained studied silence throughout the entire negotiation period.
We've actually got a member of the media from Yahoo Sports that is acknowledging the 2 owners of Unrivaled that are on the committee are absolutely causing a conflict of interest. Not only is it a conflict of interest, it is extremely bad and poor optics. Because let's be real, if the WNBA was to go for a strike, what's keeping
The media's collective reluctance to address this glaring issue represents one of the most troubling aspects of the CBA coverage. Those emphasizing this substantial conflict of interest must consider how ownership views the situation. Team owners likely harbor serious concerns seeing committee members with competing business interests wielding strike authorization power. The WNBA Players Association president now participates in a potential competitor league, further complicating matters. The Players Association faces potential risks from this arrangement.
What's keeping Unrivaled from going, you know what? Why don't we play 5-on-5? Oh, well, that's opportune all of a sudden. I mean, let's be real. At this point, they're going to have to try anything. Because I still believe Project B puts them out of business. Yahoo Sports, let's check this out.
What do you make of the idea of the conflict of interest between Nafisa Collier and Brianna?
Ownership could respond with aggressive countermeasures, potentially implementing a lockout to send an unmistakable message. Such action might include eliminating revenue-sharing proposals entirely, with owners willing to accept short-term losses to establish boundaries. A lockout scenario would reveal which players remain unified versus those willing to defect. Some athletes might prioritize the substantial salary increases being offered over solidarity. A work stoppage imposed by ownership would test loyalties quickly, forcing players to decide whether to cross organizational lines.
Of the idea of the conflict of interest between Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart in the interest of Unrivaled may not necessarily aligning with the interest of the W.
Well, Fee and Stewie are not only WNBA players. They are on the executive committee. So as is Kelsey Plum, she's playing in Unrivaled. 3 of the 7 people on that board who can now vote for a strike are part of Unrivaled. That is not necessarily a bad thing. I think the thing about conflict of interest, though, is just the simple fact that
Despite voting to authorize strikes, players face different calculations when ownership initiates shutdowns. The dynamics shift considerably when athletes must actively choose between competing interests. High-profile players like Caitlin Clark possess the intelligence to recognize these conflicting loyalties. Similarly, Sophie Cunningham likely understands the ethical complications involved. These athletes demonstrate thoughtfulness and avoid being consumed by unrelated social priorities that preoccupy some colleagues and media members.
Is just the simple fact that you as a person have interests that conflict with one another. Yeah. The key thing is just keeping in mind that that is there. The facts of it are Fee and Stewie run this league that makes them money. There are players who played in the first season who have equity in the league who are able to make money off of this league, right? And that's the thing, is just to keep it in mind that these are 2 different things. If we want to go all the way back, like players.
The agenda alignment between certain players and journalists represents another factor worth noting. Both groups sometimes prioritize identity politics over substantive business analysis. The Yahoo Sports coverage stands as a notable exception to this pattern. The willingness to address uncomfortable truths, regardless of potential backlash, represents journalism operating as intended. Their candid assessment of an issue others refuse to acknowledge deserves commendation and sets a standard others should follow.